Yeah, I mean, I think it's about getting granular in that way. So a lot of times it's good to make videos that are very, very focused on one thing. That could be one product, it could be one aspect of a product or one feature of a product, or one certain type of customer that buys those products.
Hey everybody, welcome back to episode number 10 of the In Focus podcast. I'm your host, Austin Black with Backroad Productions, where we specialize in creating marketing campaigns that your customers just cannot ignore. And today I am so excited to have you join us as we visit with Matthew Schramer. We're going to talk about storytelling today. Step 3 of this process is to create your compelling message, your engaging story. And it's something that is such an easy concept, but it can be very difficult to implement correctly. So we're going to dig into the nuts and bolts of what storytelling really means and how to create an effective and engaging message for your video. One of the things that I love about this conversation is we get into what makes a story authentic and engaging and real. Even though a lot of times we're talking about fictional people or fictional stories, it still is very real, very authentic, very genuine, and that's what it takes to make it compelling and engaging for your audience. So we're going to talk about the elements of good storytelling and how to create a story for your brand. So folks, without further ado, let's jump into my conversation with Matthew Schramer. Hey folks, we are here with the In Focus podcast, season 2, episode number 10. And I have got the wonderful master of all cinematography from Utah, Mr. Matthew Schramer here. And I hope I pronounced that last name right. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Matt began his pursuit of filmmaking mastery while he attended the film school at Brigham Young University. And later he worked on his first professional project as an editor, camera operator, and producer on a feature-length documentary about the modern-day Maya in Guatemala. Over the past 14 years, Matt has worked as a screenwriter, film director, cinematographer, and video editor in various industries. He has worked in the TV industry and with feature films, documentaries, commercials, and most recently, outdoor films, which is where I find passion with him. Now he runs a cinematic commercial production agency called Mazer Media, and with a small team of experts, he directs commercials and short films for outdoor brands. Some of his clients include Badlands Gear, which is awesome, Cotopaxi, Climate, Smith Optics, Lume Q, Pro Bar, and many, many others. Matt does enjoy the great outdoors every day, and he resides in Utah with his wife and 2 daughters. Matt, thank you so much for joining us today on In Focus. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I am super excited for us to visit today, mainly because we're both filmmakers, we're both cinematographers. We love video production and we love the outdoors. It's kind of, seems to be our common bond in this industry. Yeah. So I'm really excited to hear your input on this. And today we're talking about developing that key message, which really, I think when it comes down to video storytelling is the most important element. If you don't have that defined message, no one's going to watch. So I am super excited to hear your thoughts on that today. Start off and tell folks more about yourself, about Mazer Media, and how you help brands tell their story.
Sure thing. Yeah. So Mazer Media, I kind of started off and on over the years, and it's kind of more evolved into outdoor brands in the last 5 years. It's definitely one of my passions, and I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to work with good brands in the outdoor industry. I really kind of try to focus on, as you say, story is, I feel like, is the best way to reach people through video and most forms of communication. People love to be entertained. They love stories in general, and they usually resonate with people more than, giving them information, trying to sell them the old-fashioned way with those old infomercials or things like that, where you're hitting them over the head with it. And I think some brands even today are still trying to do that. They want it to be very salesy, and they think that is the best way to make sure they get their money back. Mm-hmm. But I've found that if it's not really the most effective, that really is it's all about connecting with your brand with what people care about. And that is an experience. I think people want to have an experience in life, something that's out of the norm, especially with the outdoors, right? You want to be able to go to those places that you've never been before, Instagram kind of perpetuates this a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
This culture of living through other people that, doing things you've never done before, having an adventure. And so I think, especially in the outdoor space, brands need to do that. They need to make people feel like, I want to have that experience that you're showing me in that video and in that story, and your brand will kind of help me achieve that. So I think that's the first thing that I try to get across, is that story is the best way to reach people and help them, help you convert sales in a subtle way, without kind of annoying your customers,
Right.
but also help your build brand loyalty, where they understand that you get them, right? The brand gets them. They want your product because they want to have experiences they're having. They can have, by watching some of the videos. So that's kind of what I think number one thing I try to drive home with a lot of the meetings I have with brands.
Now, your background was in a different industry, and you kind of have
Yeah.
converted over to film production, specifically with the outdoor brand. So walk us through kind of where you started and where you got, or how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, that's a good question. I kind of skipped all that. So I started in film school, and I had the intentions of making movies and going to Hollywood and doing all that. And, and I thought that's what my career path was. But when I tried out a few of those types of projects and went out to Hollywood for a little period of time, it wasn't really what I wanted. It wasn't the lifestyle I wanted, the culture I wanted. And so I kind of decided to pivot and do, and make sure that I'm on a career path that I'm going to enjoy, not only professionally, but, my private life as well. So, and live in a place I want to live. So I decided not to live in LA and not do the Hollywood thing. Maybe it's in the cards later on, you never know. But right now it's not there. So one thing I started off with before I even formed Mazer Media was I started in documentary film. And this has influenced my style of filmmaking a lot. Telling stories about real people.
Yeah.
And I think even more today than ever before with YouTube and social media, real stories about real people is what people want to see most of the time. And it's what goes viral. It's what people share. And so I started doing that as an editor. And I had a lot of experience in documentary film and TV doing editing. And as much as I loved editing for TV shows, reality TV and documentary TV, I got burned out with editing. When you're doing just one thing all the time, you quickly get sick of it. Or you really quickly learn, like, this is for me and it's my passion, or it's not. And I knew that I was like, I can definitely edit really well, but I was like, I'm not wanting to be an editor for the rest of my life.
Right.
So I had to make a choice. I was like, well, do I just keep accepting these projects? And it was a hard thing because I had a career going where I could have, if I had continued down that path, I could have been a successful video editor or TV editor. But I didn't want to keep doing it. I didn't enjoy it in the end. It just was something I dreaded instead of enjoying. And I loved film, so that it makes sense to me. So I decided to quit that, make a different choice, and try to be an entrepreneur and filmmaker at the same time, start my own business. And because I knew at that point, being a filmmaker and an entrepreneur and being in charge of my career that way, or having my own company, I could, basically do what I really want. And then if I didn't want to edit, I could hire it out, right? I could find someone who's a good editor and have them do the editing, and me do the directing or the filming, the cinematography or whatever. So that's kind of the career path I took as I switched from, the TV world of editing. And then, in the last 5 years, things got real slow as I tried to make that shift, because I gave up clients. I said, well, I'm no longer going to be editing and going to be filming and directing. And like, well, do you have any experience with that? I was like, well, yeah, in college, but I was like, that doesn't always, translate.
Right.
So I kind of had to start over, I had to start over. So lost a lot of clients and work, and it was hard. So, and that was the peak of like middle of recession, so it was a really difficult time. I had kids coming on the way. My wife was working too to kind of keep us going, but I had to figure something out. So I actually took a full-time job to kind of make ends meet, doing videos and, making videos and producing videos for a healthcare company. And I still have that thing going on the side. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But, I have an itch that I have to scratch, I'm ready to like leave that, go full time with my business. And then over these last 5 years, I've been developing Mazer Media, partnering with good editors, good cinematographers, good animators, that, they work with me on a project basis.
Mm-hmm.
And, we do quite a bit of client work on a consistent basis with outdoor brands. So that means like hunting, fishing, camping, mountain biking, that kind of stuff. And it's been good. It's, it's definitely, it gets me outdoors, gets me away from the computer all day long.
Right.
And I like it. So sorry, a long answer to a simple question, but that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm working with local and some national brands,
Mm-hmm.
In that space.
Awesome. So in the past 5 years, as you've been working with these brands and kind of getting more zoned into the outdoor industry, what has kind of been your main focus with the stories and with the messages that you're helping your customers share? What are you working with them? What type of projects or messaging are you working on in those different areas?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a lot of it is, I would say, be summed up into a few different types of commercials or videos. One is a big thing is brand anthems. So, what is your brand? Who are you as a company?
Mm-hmm.
As not just the company name, but everybody who works there, the culture, what you stand for, your products stand for. When people think of Badlands, for example, what do they think of, and what like words come to mind to describe Badland,
Tough
so, yeah, and their warranty that's like, lifetime,
Mm-hmm.
so I think people resonate with them for they're standing by their product. Right. So, we had to kind of steer them in a direction that's like, well, let's figure out what you're marketing first. Like, what is your marketing message? What does your brand stand for? And if you don't know that, you got to figure it out right away, because all of your messaging, your marketing messaging, should tie back into that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Everything should have a visual style that matches your brand image. And so with Badlands, they were pretty established, so they kind of knew, but others I've worked with that are smaller companies, working with one right now that's called Backroad. They're like Quiet Cat.
Okay.
They make e-bikes for hunters,
Mm-hmm.
and they've only been in business for a couple years, so they're still developing their marketing material, figuring out what their brand is. And in that sense, it's fun because I can say, hey, what do you want your brand to be?
Right.
If you don't know what it
Let's start
is,
from scratch on it.
yeah, let's start from scratch and figure it out. What kind of style of content do you want? And so, yeah, you have to figure that out first. Is like, how do you want your customers to react to your brand?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, man, and because we're talking about, that story and that message of what you want to convey them, what you want them to remember above all else.
Right.
So I guess, to kind of expound upon that, as you're working with some of these companies that are maybe past that brand point where they are
Mm-hmm.
doing more specific marketing functions. We talked at the very beginning about how marketing has changed to where we're not just beating them over the head with the stuff. We're trying to market through emotion, market through storytelling.
Yeah.
How are you getting these businesses to focus on that element, and how is that impacting the work that you produce?
Well, to get them to focus on it, sometimes it's a bit of trial and error. I mean, you kind of have to prove to them in some
Mm-hmm.
cases. I mean, even with Badlands, who's an established brand, or I'm trying to think of another one off the top of my head. Well, Cotopaxi's not in hunting, but they're in the backpacking space.
Mm-hmm.
But to prove to both of those types of brands that story matters, you sometimes have to take on a project and say, hey, here's what I envision that could be good for your brand.
Mm-hmm.
This is how it aligns with who you are as a brand and how it can reach your audience through story. And let's try it. And what do you think about just trying it? In some cases I've had to, say, if you're a little hesitant to try it at a normal budget price for this type of project, we can give you a discount and do it kind of half or discounted rate
Mm-hmm.
on our project rates. And that way you can test the waters with us and see if you like our relation, not only working with us, but like what we produce for you.
Yeah.
So much in filmmaking and in this world is about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And you really have to be a trusted partner for them. You have to be someone that they want to work with. And do not only do a good job, but they want to work with again, So
Right.
that was part of it. And so, we with Badlands as an example, we had an idea to create this character for them that represented the brand, similar to kind of like the most interesting man in the world you probably have heard of. So we wanted somebody that could be rugged, could have experienced lots of life and all kinds of hunts, and been in the backcountry and everywhere in between.
So Jim
and hunted all kinds of, Jim Shockey. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. Kind of like a Jim Shockey. Yeah. But anyway, so we wanted them to have like a brand ambassador, like a face for the brand.
Yeah.
And tell a story about their company and how they came to be. And they had their own ideas they wanted to add into it. It's always good to listen to what they have to say, include their elements into a story. But going back to your initial question, is really it starts with testing the waters with them, see if they'll try it out. Pitching ideas that they never heard before. Tell them, hey, here's a story concept. Doing the legwork and the homework on our end, saying here is a story. I think it doesn't have to be a script. It could be just a proposal with a story fleshed out. And say, here's a few concepts for stories that kind of align with your brand. What do you think? Here's how it can connect with your audience and potentially, drive sales. Everybody wants to make money, but they have to also realize that it's about building brand awareness and loyalty. Yeah. And if people see cool things and, a great story on a video, you'd be like, okay, I want to follow their YouTube or Facebook and read all their blogs because I liked something I watched on YouTube or watched their video and I'm now a fan, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And if you have that loyalty, then they're going to probably buy down the road, if not right away.
So with those thoughts in mind, then let's kind of dig a little deeper and get tactical on this. Whenever you have these conversations with these brands, and whether you are presenting the new idea of story or a script or concept or however you're approaching that, when it comes down to actually defining what that message is going to consist of, whether that is language or emotion or just however that is for that particular project. Because obviously, we are writing out some scripts and some voiceovers, or we're just kind of putting a shot list together. We're getting a general concept of what we want to communicate within this video. How do you guide your customers to process that message and to figure out what key point, what key element do we want to communicate through this video?
Okay. See, I knew you'd stump me at some point. Or at least make me think about it for a minute. So what key element do we want them to take away from the video?
Right.
Yeah, I think it's about getting granular in that way. So a lot of times it's good to make videos that are very, very focused on one thing. That could be one product. It could be one aspect of a product or one feature of a product or one certain type of customer that buys those products, right? So in this example of with Backroad, these e-bikes for hunters, we've been trying to reach hunters who, they up till now, they try to trek up the mountain themselves, right? They walk up the mountain themselves, hike up the mountain. And we're trying to reach them and say, hey, look, you can just do this one simple thing in a video, show how with an e-bike, you can save time, effort, energy, and store your energy for later when you need it for the hunt. Yeah. So, you can make a video like that can have one key feature. I think it goes back to pain points. I think, most customers have a pain point with certain products, whether it's a backpack they want to buy for a hiking trip, a tent for camping or whatever it is. They're frustrated with certain things about the current one they have. And you need to figure out what that is. The brand needs to figure out what are those pain points, things that they're annoyed or struggle with, and fix them, right? Like address them in the video. Say, hey, well, our product, basically solves your pain points And so I think that is the key takeaway. I would say, if I had to sum it up, is focus your videos on something that customers struggle with and that you can resolve through your product.
So what is your suggestion then, if we're looking at more of just an overall brand awareness piece, where we don't have a specific product that we're marketing, or maybe even a specific, I mean, we're going to have a specific audience, but maybe it's not narrowed down to, to your one persona you develop. Maybe it's just a broader, deer hunters, we'll just say, for example. If you are going a little bit wider on that, how do you still create that message that speaks to what they need to know to convert on that? Because we're not making something that is, a tree stand. We're making something that is more about what Cabela's does for deer hunters. So it's specific, sure, but it's also general in that sense. How do you walk customers through creating that broader sense and that message?
Well, I think that goes back to two things: connecting to authenticity, so real things that they experience,
mm-hmm.
and story. So if you can tie those two things together, you can tie story and a real experience that they have either want to experience or have experienced while they're deer hunting.
Yeah.
Then I think that's what's going to resonate with them, and they're going to be like, okay, I like your product because it doesn't always have to be so on the nose or whatever. It could be
right.
subtle and more about the visuals, and let the visuals tell the story. But I think that's the key thing, is that there has to be something that they can relate with, because
mm-hmm.
we all are humans. We all have different backgrounds, different interests, and even hunters and fishermen and anybody else, outdoorsmen, outdoorswomen, they approach the outdoors differently based on how they were raised and other
right.
things. So I think you have to kind of like tap into real stories and real human experience, and tie that into how your product can help them in those experiences.
And that brings back to whenever we're telling a story, I mean, that story can be as general and elaborated as we want it to be, or it can be as detailed and focused. I think even back to some of the shows that we watch, and in an episode, there's several different stories going on within a TV episode. I mean, you got the entire season story, you've got the story of that one episode, and then in some cases, if you've got multiple people within that show, you've got the stories of each individual character. And
a video
campaign is the exact same concept. If you're doing an overall brand awareness piece, that is your story of the company, of the season, of what you are all about. And then you break that down little by little into those smaller, more defined stories. And then when it's all said and done, you come out with a video that speaks to one quote unquote person for one product at one time, and you make a flash sale out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can.
You can funnel all the way down there just by looking at, what is the point of this video, and how do we build that story around that? And I think that's something that we can flex with a little bit. But as long as we combine those 2 points that you mentioned there, being authentic, being real, being about somebody and telling that story, then you can make it as broader or specific as your campaign calls for, I think.
No, I agree with you there for sure. I think I've seen some really great campaigns that are really broad and don't target necessarily one specific type of customer, but they still speak to that customer, and they speak to a lot of others at the same time. So it's a good point.
So whenever we get down to those elements of storytelling, of real people, of authenticity, what different elements are you using to really make that key message truly effective? Because I mean, there's people that can tell a boring story. And there are people that can tell a very engaging, very exciting story. So what elements are you pulling into that message to make it where it really does resonate?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, you kind of need to know how to tell a good story. If you don't, then you need to research how to tell a good story, or watch lots of good stories, both in film. And I'm not, this is speaking to anybody that struggles with telling stories. I had to learn the same thing because I wasn't always a good storyteller, and I'm still learning. But, I mean, I think you have to kind of watch a lot of good stories and learn from that. But I think the key elements are, the visuals. I mean, that's the amazing thing about video and commercials and how you can tell stories in film and video is it's kind of like the complete package, more than a blog, the written word, or a book, podcast, anything else, because you get all those things combined into one, right? You get the audio, you get the sound, you get the music,
Right.
you can have graphic animation, you can have all of it, right? And so it's kind of tapping into all the different senses. But I think that is key, is you focus on, when you make a great commercial for a brand or a video for a brand, you focus on making that in an experience visually and audibly. And so your cinematography is crafted well. It presents the product in the best light, but it also presents it in an accurate light, right? You don't want to make it look too shiny and fake that it doesn't feel real. And then the sound of being in the outdoors or whatever, if it's not outdoors, if it's tech space, the sounds that are associated with gadgets, like bringing that to life more. I think, when you make a commercial and video, you have to bring it to life so it feels real, feels like you're there with them in the video, the characters. And then having people in the commercial that you can relate with, characters. We like the TV shows and movies we like most importantly, because of the characters.
Right.
If you took away the good characters and you had just a plot with bad actors or something, or bad characters, you wouldn't watch the movie, right?
Right.
So I think that's another big thing. I mean, they don't have to be the prettiest people on the planet, but they definitely need to be people who they can relate with. And that's knowing your audience too. You don't want to put people into a commercial for a brand that doesn't seem to fit their typical customer base.
Right.
So I mean, so those are some key. I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but those are more of the technical things, the key features. But I think as far as the creative key features of a good story, it just kind of needs to have a beginning, middle, and end. It needs to hook people right away, so that we're not bored. We're not like wondering what's going to happen. We're engaged from the start. And a lot of times good stories present something that we haven't seen before. If we have seen it before, we're telling the story in a different way or a unique way. So, using your creativity to kind of come up with unique ways to tell the stories.
Hey folks, while we're talking about storytelling today, I think it's important to remember that this is just one element of the entire strategy process. It's an important element, but without the other components, you just don't get the full picture. And because of that, you have a video that just doesn't do the job, doesn't perform well if you don't have the right audience with the right call to action and know how to actually measure the performance of the campaign. So if you want to create a video campaign that actually gets results, that drives sales, that creates brand awareness, but you just don't know how to get that going, how to start that, then sign up for our video strategy workshop where we'll walk you through all the steps, and then we will create a customized roadmap exactly like you need just for you so you can implement it with success. For more information about the workshop and how to get started with that, visit backroad-productions.com/workshops. Get your custom session booked and get started on the road to successful video marketing. Now back to my conversation with Matt Schramer. It's funny that you mentioned, if we've heard it before, I think back to, the stories that my grandpa would tell. And, we got into a joke where we would start naming or numbering the stories because we had heard them so many times and he had so many of them. But at the same time, you always listened to them. You were always interested in what happened. And I think it's because it was truly real and there was some experience there. And there is stuff that you honestly, you can't make up. And if you have a story where it is authentic and genuine and has, people in it and just is real life. I mean, there's some stuff that you cannot make up.
Well, even fictional stories, if you're making up a fictional story for a brand, for a video, you definitely need to make sure that it's kind of rooted in some reality to some degree, or it has some authenticity, and it's genuine. So meaning that, it connects with what people are experiencing in real life, those customers are experiencing in real life. So You're absolutely right on that. I mean, that is probably the number one aspect of the story itself, is it needs to kind of touch back to those core human experiences. That could be the human struggle of, you know, financial poverty, human struggle of just working, physical work every day, working out, you know, on the land. You know, there's lots of different kind of themes, but you definitely want to like pay attention to what's currently happening in the world around you too, to you know, be able to make sure you base the stories on something that's current and trending.
So something that I just thought of, and we may not be able to really address this too much, but I'm kind of curious of what your thoughts are. You know, in one of our later episodes, we talk about the length of a video of a campaign, you know, how long is too long or how short do we need to be. But getting into just even the time frame of a video and the time frame you're telling that story. I know I'm a big fan of Donald Miller and his story brand framework, and how much time you have to actually get that hook put in there and to get people engaged in your video, and then how long it takes you to actually resolve that conflict at the end and make them say, okay, this is what I need to do. This is how I'm going to actually fulfill what I'm being called to do here. So as you are building out stories, and, you know, maybe this is you writing the script or whatever the case may be, is there any type of formula that you think brands should pay attention to, or timeline of how long it takes to actually present that problem, address it with a solution, and bring that call to action at the end?
Oh, well, that's a good question. I actually have kind of two opposing viewpoints in my mind that I'm like struggling with, is like, because I do believe in the social media world of get in your hook and your message within, like, hook them within the first 5 seconds, right? And then, you know, make sure that you communicate who your brand is or what the message of the video is in the first 10, 15 seconds, you know? So like they understand what you're getting at within those first 15, 20 seconds. A lot of that stems back from YouTube ads, right? You know, people are used to seeing YouTube ads or Facebook ads, and they, back in the day, they were really short, and you only had 30 seconds to hook people. Well, before those kinds of ads, we had TV commercials, same thing. So, you know, you don't let people have a shorter attention span than they used to. But I've also found that people will sit through a lot longer content than you think if it's engaging. So they might sit down and watch a Yeti film that's 7 minutes, right? Or 10 minutes, because they're hooked on the story. And before they know it, they've watched a 10-minute film while they're working, you know, or while they're on their lunch break. Guilty. Yeah, me too. You know, oh yeah, I got to get back to work.
Exactly.
You know, because they're hooked, because, you know, like, and the reason why is they still structure it where there's different points throughout the story where there's cliffhangers. They're hooking you still near the beginning, and they're setting up the story where you're intrigued by it right from the beginning. You know what the story's about, but you want to know more, so you keep watching, you know? So I think there's still a place for long format storytelling with brands, and you'll see that a lot on YouTube and on Facebook with brands where they're telling real stories, you know, customer stories, documentary style, and they're 7 to 10 minutes long. Yeti's a perfect example of that.
So, you know, I know a lot of those longer form pieces, they're more that brand awareness, just kind of get you to engage, get you to like the brand, get you to become more aware with it. Let's flip that over a little bit and talk about your shorter marketing pieces that are designed to make you go do something after you watch it. So in those cases, how long do you wait before you really say, hey, this is what you're supposed to go do after you watch this video, you know, and give them that clear call to action? Is that something that needs to be presented early on, or do you think you can wait until, let's just say, the last 10 seconds of the video to put that in there?
Well, I mean, there are different ways to do it, but I think it's probably better in most cases to do the call to action near the end. You can kind of slip it in near the beginning in a subtle way, but if it comes across salesy in the first 5 seconds, unless it's a comical piece.
Right.
Like there's lots of great stuff, like the Old Spice one, with the guy on the horse, you know, other things like that, where they're definitely selling you right from the start, you know, but you think it's funny, so you watch it. Whereas if it's not a comical commercial, then it's really hard to like pitch the call to action right in the first 5 seconds, because they're gonna, oh, okay, I don't want to hear it. But you know, you got to hook them with engaging visuals, or, you know, a story, or, you know, something unique on the product from the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and throw that call into action into the end. I've seen actually really great content that's 30 seconds long or 60 seconds long that doesn't even have a call to action. Their call to action is on the post. They have the video on Facebook or Instagram or wherever, and then they have a description, and they put it there. Or they, if they really loved the piece that they were watching, they could click on it, they just have to click on something,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes them somewhere else for more information, which gives them the call to action. So there's a lot of ways to do it that are a lot of them are effective too. It's just knowing what your customers like,
Mm-hmm.
knowing what the brand's customers like, and making sure that you kind of cater to that.
So you brought up something there that I hadn't really thought about before. With making your story be kind of that witty, sarcastic. Everyone knows that you're going beyond the lines of normal commercial stuff. Sometimes that works really well. And I even think back to some of the commercials we watched over the years that were just stupid, silly, but we love them and we know exactly what they're wanting to do all along the way. What is your perspective on because that's still a story within that, on developing that story in a way where even though it's not your heartfelt, genuine, authentic, real deal, we're still going to watch it. We're still going to respond to it. How do you craft that, do you think?
Well, I think the thing to keep in mind is when you're crafting those is that, you want to make people laugh, right? That's the whole point of those types of commercials. So you got to make sure it's funny. And and I think the best way to do that is test it out before you release it. Test it out with a small group, a sample size of people that, and then obviously share the script with other people. The same goes with big epic commercials or high energy action commercials that aren't heartfelt, aren't real, but they're trying to show something that's cool, and high tech or flashy.
Right.
That's similar to comedy in a way, because it's very specific language. You have to kind of tie into there. Mm-hmm. You have to understand that with those high energy action commercials, it's about escapism. It's like people just want to be entertained. They don't want to life is difficult. They want to be entertained. Same thing for comedy, right? They want to laugh. Life is hard, and they want to forget about their problems for a minute and laugh.
Uh-huh.
And so I think that is the key thing you got to always think about is what are some things you can type in, or you can add in humor that is focused on their life situations, real life situations still, and throw a spin on it and make it comical and make light of it. But you do have to make sure you test out your humor, and with the action flashy side of it, you got to make sure that it looks cool, sounds cool, and people want to try it out because they're entertained, because there's being educated today. We're all educated through YouTube and news articles and blogs, and those are great. But when it's a very different approach with comedy and selling flashiness, it has to be entertaining first and foremost. And even before you try to sell your brand, you're just trying to entertain them.
Right, definitely. So as you think back to some of the campaigns and the videos that you produced over the last few years, what jumps out to you as some of your most memorable stories that you've helped produced, and what has made them so special to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've had a lot of recent experience with the comedy side of things, because I don't know if it's just what's trending, but I have a lot of clients who approach me and say, "Hey, we want to do a video like this," and then they show me a commercial of Poopery or the Old Spice commercial, or whatever.
We all need a good laugh right now.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. It's too much seriousness in the world. So I get a lot of people approaching me about that. It's like, hey, we want something funny. And I actually have quite a few on my portfolio that I can share with them. One that I had a cool experience with was it was a cleaning product. This was before I kind of started focusing my niche on outdoor, but it was like a cleaning product for your garages. Just like a spray. That would get off grime, and it had a fun name. It was called Grime Monster, right? So that name already started my wheels turning in my brain. I could come up with some cool ideas just with the name alone, And so we actually came up with this concept, my team and I, you know, it was my script initially, but of like throwing in or having all the like classic monsters from movies, right? Frankenstein, Dracula, so on, be in this commercial. And this Grime Monster cleaning product is for monsters who have a hard time cleaning off, you know, their monster messes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you have to approach this. This could easily fall into the cheesy territory where people they laugh at it because it's so bad,
Right.
not because it's funny. So you have to be careful there. But you know, we had a great team of people that came together where we had costumes and makeup and, you know, fun dialogue for all the different monsters to you know, to say about the product, and kind of, you know, kind of over the top scenarios of them using the product. And it came across really well. It was produced well from start to finish. I think for me, the work I'm most proud of, the stories I most resonate with, are usually ones that I get a chance to, you know, to have some creative freedom and, you know, not be, you know, controlled by the client too much. And, you know, I get to see the product, the stories, you know, come to life from start to finish. And where I sit back and after it's done, I say, hey, it's not like perfect, because it's hard to always get it perfect, right? It never is. But I could look at that and say it's close to what I envisioned. There's been some heartfelt stories I've told as well, and, you know, in the outdoor space and in healthcare, where you really feel like you're making a difference, like a real difference in the world, while you make I mean, commercials trying to sell stuff. We don't get too many opportunities to actually connect with people, and, you know, where they actually want to make a difference and help up and make it, you know, and what I mean make a difference is like, you know, be better in their real lives, you know, be better people, be kinder to their neighbors, those kinds of things. You know, commercials usually just trying to sell stuff. So when I have an opportunity to work on something like that, it definitely is a reward.
You had one recently that kind of combined some stuff that I was really intrigued with. Tell us about the commercial you did. I believe it was for a hospital. It was a commercial for a rodeo, I think. Tell us about that project and how you got to combine several elements of story within that from different industries.
Yeah, that was combining, like you mentioned, rodeo and healthcare. And it was a very fun project because, you know, I got to combine stories of real people who were patients at this hospital and who were, you know, well taken care of after they had a rodeo accident, you know, or multiple rodeo accidents. And it's a family it's actually a story of a father and his sons who are all in the rodeo. And I'm sure there's lots of stories like that, but, you know, like this one was tied to a hospital and how they took care of their community. And, you know, in America, more than any other country, we have a really strong sense of community, you know, and there are other places that do too. I'm not saying that they don't, but we have very strong sense of community, neighborhoods, you know, neighbors, friends, family, where we look after each other, we have each other's back. And, you know, that hospital that project really felt like that, where the hospital had this family's back, you know, and it was about like combining really rugged, gritty rodeo footage, right? Where they're on the horse, getting dirty in the dust, and, you know, and competing as well. You know, combining that with being taken care of after they have been injured. And the whole goal of that project, we had one message that was key to the whole thing. And this is also goes back to your messaging and story idea, is you need to kind of have one message you want to drive home in each video or each commercial. You know, I mean, it's the same thing with movies that have a tagline that you read on a poster or whatever. So that when they watch it, they understand what they're going. If they don't understand anything else, or take away anything else, they take away that, right? So with this one, it was about that. You know, we help you get, you know, basically, like, I mean, this wasn't the phrase, but, you know, we getting you back on the saddle, right? Helping you achieve your dreams and continue competing. So that was the message. So, you know, we had to tie that into healthcare and how healthcare can actually help a rodeo family continue to live their dreams, you know. And so I think if you have a key message like that, it helps shape everything, right? It helps you shape what your visuals are, how your actors are going to, we we had real people, not actors. So
Yeah.
that really made it more authentic too, so but having that key message really shaped everything. I don't know if that is all what you're looking for on that project, but we did combine a lot of things in it as far as story, story about family struggle with hardship, and and how they work together to overcome those hardships, and continue living their dreams, but also having the hospital play a part in that. So
That's awesome. I love how that it does combine both those stories, because you've got the story of the rodeo family that, they're living life and they're enjoying what they do and they're having so much fun, but it's risky, it's dangerous. And there's some reality there that you're going to get hurt. And then you come around, you have the reality of, the hospital is there for you no matter what, to protect you and to keep you doing stuff. And they're the ones that really just, make your life continue going. And you take both those stories and combine them together. It's like, oh man, that's engaging, powerful stuff right there.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Sorry, a little sneak peek of my daughter there trying to
little photo bomber.
I locked my door, but apparently I didn't. No, you're absolutely right. It's like, and I think it was a rare kind of lightning in a bottle where we were able to kind of take two worlds that actually care about humans, right? Like they care about their neighbors. Rodeo is very family and oriented, and healthcare can be the same. So it made good sense to combine them.
Definitely. So you said that, a video has to have one point, one message, one story. As we wrap up today, what is the key point, key message, key story that you want brands to take away from our conversation here?
Oh yeah, you give me the hard one here. You sum it up into one. Let's see. Yeah, I think it's would use the word authenticity, the one you used earlier, and connecting to human experience and human emotion. I didn't talk about this earlier, but when all good commercials and video and film helps the viewers feel something, right?
Yeah.
They may not, they may not cry, they may not even laugh when they're supposed to laugh, but if they feel, you want them to laugh when they're supposed to laugh. But you want them to feel something, and if they don't feel it as strongly as somebody else, that's fine. And if they don't take action on it right away, and they take action on it later, and it lingers in their mind, and they think about it, I think of some of the best stories I've watched in film and video or read. They stick with me. I can't let them go for a while. I can't sleep for a little while because I think about them for a while, and I'm mulling over in my mind, and to the point where I'm like, I want to know more about that story, or I want to experience, what that story is kind of showing me, and change my life, or, do something that actually is action oriented, rather than just thought process. Because that's what it takes to sell product, right? You need action. Yeah. And so I think if you can help someone feel something, have a human emotion and a human experience, and tap into the real human experience where it's authentic, then you're going somewhere with your product and your content.
Very good stuff. Well, Matt, thanks so much for sharing your insight. I think there's a lot of great points that you've made just about the elements of story and how a story can really be pretty versatile. It's not like we have to have, just a heartfelt message or just an action-packed sales message. We can be flexible, and we can be authentic and genuine with how we be authentic and genuine. Everything is kind of subject to breaking the rules sometimes, and how our brand can relate, how we want our customers to relate, and just the creativity element of it, I think, is what makes it so much fun. And especially us as creatives, we get to kind of play around with some things and experiment with the story and the visuals and the music, and just how all those components come together. But we have to remember what is our mission with this video. And I think as long as you keep that as at the center, then everything else will come to fulfillment.
No, you're absolutely right. Golden nuggets there. So I won't say anything else. You've got it.
Well, Matt, thanks again so much for being on the show today, for sharing your insights. And where can people find out more about the work that you do with Major Media?
Oh, thanks for asking. Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, Facebook. You can first go to the website, mazermedia.com. That is spelled Mazer media. And same thing with Instagram and Facebook. So it's at Mazer Media. I had a Twitter account, but I kind of don't use it that much. And YouTube, I'm trying to get better at using, of course. But a lot of my content I create is for brands, so they end up sharing it on their YouTube. But that's where you can find it, at Mazer Media and mazermedia.com.
Awesome. Well, everybody look Matt up. He is an awesome cinematographer, a wonderful friend, and a great podcast guest. Thanks so much for being on today, Matt.
Appreciate it, Austin. Have a good one.
Well, as a fellow filmmaker, I love talking with other film producers and just talking shop, having fun there. But I hope that you guys enjoyed this conversation as much as I did and learned about the storytelling aspect of video production and what makes that so important, why that is such an important element to a successful campaign. Now, you can talk about your company all day long, the benefits, the features, everything else, but if you can't tell an engaging story, then your customers will never listen. So as we talked about the elements of a story and why it's important to make it authentic and engaging and personal, I hope that resonated with you and that you can implement that into your own video marketing campaign. For more information about Major Media and some of the work that they have done, check out the show notes at backroad-productions.com/podcast. And of course, if you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review. Help us boost the ratings on this podcast and get it out there to more people. We would love to hear what you think about the podcast. So drop us a review there. Thanks for listening, and be sure to tune in next week again to In Focus.